Gran and I'm here today to bring you my September Stack-It TBR. I strongly suspect I'm going to be combating lipstick on the teeth throughout this entire video. You're welcome. September, as far as I am concerned, is the beginning of autumn. It is finally fall. It is crispy leaves and pumpkins and all things orange and spooky. Prepare yourselves for my TBR to be sprinkled liberally with horror and really nasty thrillers for at least the next couple of months, until it's time to start reading Christmas books. Also, September's stack is absolutely jam-packed, so without further ado, first up for September is one that I have already showed you guys in one of my summer book hauls. I'll link whatever one is up here, and that is Genedope by Victoria Helen Stone. Essentially, our Jane Doe in this case is a woman who we know very little about at the beginning of this novel, and she has infiltrated a kind of mid-level Minneapolis insurance firm specifically to meet one guy who she's met before and she knows a lot about, but this guy doesn't remember her, which suits her purposes because she is about to ingratiate herself into his entire life and then ruin it. You guys know that I love a female revenge tale, especially one where, as this one has, and I'm only about 30 pages in, but the narrator has already identified herself as someone who struggles with empathy and has sociopathic feelings. I'm getting Sweet Pea vibes by C.J. Susk. I really hope it's going to continue to be just as amazing. Next up, it's time for the first genuinely spooky book on my stack, and that is Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant. I absolutely love the cover of this novel, and I love that the spine is all watery and reflective and murky. Orbit has done a very good job with the package of this book, in my humble opinion. So Mira Grant is the pen name of Seanan Maguire, who wrote the Wayward Children series, which begins with Every Heart a Doorway, which you guys know I love with a burning passion. Mira Grant books, on the other hand, are very much more horror-y and dark and have creepier themes. So of course, I'm very there for them. So 7 years ago, a ship set sail for the Mariana Trench with a mockumentary crew on board. They were going to try to bring to life the idea of old folk tales about sea creatures. But that ship was lost with all hands and was never heard from again. And now, 7 years later, a new crew has been assembled to find out what happened to the original ship. But bad things happen to them. Number 3 is also a spooky book, and I am very excited for it if you couldn't tell, and it is Dracula by Bram Stoker. Now, I have read this book before several years ago and I really loved it, but Moth has purchased herself an audiobook with Tim Curry and Alan Cumming. Can we just Tim Curry and Alan Cumming. And so this is going to be the first audiobook that I listen to for the month, and I just give it to me. Do I really need to explain the plot of Dracula? Probably not. I'll do it anyway. Essentially, this is about Jonathan Harker, who is a perfectly normal little real estate agent who is going to the castle of Count Dracula to do some business with real estate. And as he's getting on to the coach to go to Dracula's castle, all of the villagers are like, no, that's a bad idea. That is a poor life choice that you are making. Maybe don't do that because he is a vampire. I am very excited. Gonna admit to being slightly less excited for book 4 on my TBR, which is The Woman in Black by Susan Hill. I have read both this short story and the play, and I have seen the play of The Woman in Black, and I have also seen the movie, and there is something about this particular story which scares the living freaking pants off of me. I don't know exactly what in the formula works with my brain, but it's bad. If you've never heard about The Woman in Black, it follows a kind of similar plot really to Dracula. It's about a young lawyer who goes to execute an estate after somebody has died, and he has to go to Eel Marsh House in order to do it. Eel Marsh House is out in the countryside and it is on acres and acres of bogland, which essentially gets waterlogged several times a day at high tide. So he is stuck there, and while he is stuck there going through all of the papers, he starts to uncover some very nasty family secrets, and also, you know, ghosts. The Woman in Black. So why am I doing this to myself? I am doing this to myself because we have to do a Halloween episode for the podcast, and Kirsty wants to read this one. There could be tears before bedtime. If indeed there is a bedtime. That is also questionable. So as if that wasn't bad enough, the next one on my stack is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. This one is also a reread for me, and it didn't scare the pants off me the first time I read it. It's very atmospheric. It's one of those ones that very insidiously starts to peck away at you the longer that you read it. This one is about Eleanor, who is completely alone in the world, and she receives an invitation from Dr. Montague to spend a summer at Hill House. She gets there and discovers that there is another bunch of interesting characters there with her, and she really doesn't think very deeply about this at all, which again, just saying, is definitely a life choice that she has made, and not necessarily a good one. What starts off as kind of an interesting experiment that everyone is taking very lightly takes a very twisted turn very quickly, and everyone in the house realises that they are in for something that they did not sign up for, and you know, something that might kill them. If you have never read The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, the opening lines of it are so iconic that I feel like I can't skip to the next book without reading them to you. So it begins, "No live organism can continue for long to exist sanely under conditions of absolute reality. Even larks and katydids are supposed by some to dream. Hill House, not sane, stood by itself against its hills, holding darkness within. It had stood so for 80 years, and might stand for 80 more. The next one that I've got, just as a little break to all of the spookiness, is a cosy mystery, and it's one that maybe you guys have been expecting for a while. It is at Bertram's Hotel by Agatha Christie, which is the 11th of 14, I believe, Miss Marple novels. I am trying to finish my read through of Miss Marple before the end of the year, and I kind of have been putting this one off for a really long time. So here's the issue. I love Miss Marple in her normal environment. So I love her in St Mary Mead and in lots of little towns surrounding it, with her friends who she's known all of her life, and with mysteries that she gets pulled into. I like less the books with Miss Marple where she goes somewhere else. Specifically, I'm thinking about a Caribbean mystery where she goes to the Caribbean on holiday. I just feel like those books end up focusing more on other characters, and Marple is kind of there to tie it all together at the end, and I don't enjoy them as much. So this one takes place in London, where Miss Marple has gone on holiday to Bertram's Hotel. Before the war, Bertram's Hotel used to be the premier location for ladies of a certain age to take their holidays, and she realises as soon as she gets there that something is just not okay. But even though she can see a violent chain of events about to happen, that doesn't necessarily mean that she can stop them. So I'm hopeful about this one, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's one that I don't enjoy as much, which I guess has been why I've been putting it off. But the time has come. And just when you thought you had escaped all of the spooky books, I am back again with another horror. This one is Kell Creek by Scott Thomas, and this is another really beautifully packaged book. It's got French flaps and everything. Like, I'm really enjoying it. So this one tickles my fancy on very many levels. Not only is it a creepy horror, but it also has one foot in thriller, and it's a haunted house story, but it's also about a horror author. I love books about authors. It's one of the reasons that I think In a Dark Dark Wood by Ruth Ware appealed to me so very much. Even though the book is not amazing, it is about a crime author who's obsessed with Agatha Christie, so of course that was right up my street. Kell Creek is about a horror novelist who has been invited along with a group of other horror novelists to spend one night in one of the most haunted places in America. He thinks this is a very crappy idea, but he can't really turn it down. Then, as the synopsis of the book puts it, what was a Halloween publicity stunt turns into a terrifying race for survival. I am very ready for this one. So, this next one comes with a tiny confession. For the first time ever, I broke the rules of Stack-It last month. I'm not going to go too deeply into it because I'm going to talk about all of this in my tops and bottoms for the month video, which is coming up very soon. However, last month I read Pieces of Her by Karen Slaughter, which was one of my most anticipated books of the year. My most anticipated books. And I hated it. It was awfully mediocre, and I kind of want to set it on fire. And on last month's Stack-It, I also had two other books by Karen Slaughter. I had Blindsighted, and I also had Pretty Girls. And after I read Pieces of Her, I just couldn't. I was super salty about it, and I did not want to taint my experience of this one with the horrible taste that Pieces of Her had left in my mouth. So, Pretty Girls has once again made it on to my Stack-It for this month, and hopefully this month will knock it off. I'm gonna give you the tiniest synopsis because you're probably sick of hearing about it by now, because I definitely am. This is about Claire, whose eldest sister Julia went missing 20 years ago, I think. And now, all of these years later, another girl has gone missing in almost identical circumstances. And when Claire starts to look into this mystery because she desperately wants to find out exactly what happened to Julia, she realises that everything that she thought she knew was absolute crap. And what happened to Julia is far more complicated than she originally thought. The next one in my stack is essentially going to be my free choice for this month. So this is the first video I haven't gone over all of the rules for Stack-It. I'm going to start putting them in the description now. This is the third Stack-It video, I think. So if you guys aren't familiar with it, all of the rules will be down below. But my free choice for Stack-It this month, it's going to be one that I'm trying not to do a happy dance for because I am so excited, and it is going to be Lethal White by Robert Galbraith, which is the fourth book in the Cormoran Strike series, which I have been eagerly anticipating for a while. You guys all know that I am a massive fan of the Cormoran Strike series. It's a crime series that I think does almost everything right. I can't tell you very much about this one because it is book 4, but the series itself follows Cormoran Strike, who after losing a leg in Afghanistan is now retired from military intelligence, where he looked into corruption and misdeeds within the military, and he's scraping a living as a private investigator. One day the secretary that he has asked for from an agency turns up, and Robin kind of ingratiates herself in a weird way with Strike. He's quite a grumpy character, he has a lot of reason to be, and he really just wants a secretary who answers the phone and opens his mail, but instead Robin, who has had a dream job of being an investigator for her entire life, starts to become more like a partner and less like just a secretary, and between them they start to investigate a slew of different cases that come their way in all different ways. That's going to be my free choice. I think it comes out on the 18th of September, but essentially I will be reading it as soon as it lands on my doorstep. I then got a buddy read coming up this month with the wonderful Eleanor from Eleanor Reads Books. If you haven't checked out Eleanor's channel yet, I do not know what you are doing with your time. She is one of the sunniest, cheeriest people that I know. Her videos never fail to make me smile, and I hold very dear the day that I spent with her book shopping in Edinburgh. We had such a great time. She is a lovely lady. Go and check out her videos. But we are going to be holding each other's hands through Moth by Sarah Perry. I hauled this a couple of months ago, I think. I will try and find it and I will link that above as well. Sarah Perry is the author of The Essex Serpent, which was a runaway hit a couple of years ago, and this one is a very different story. This is about Helen, who 20 years ago did something that she finds absolutely unforgivable. She has changed her name, she's run away from her life, and she's barricaded herself against all of those memories that she doesn't want to touch. And then a strange manuscript comes into her possession, and as she starts to read it, she starts to feel like she's being watched and follows. The manuscript tells the story of a spectre called Moth, who is the wandering woman. Condemned to walk forever on her own, Moth is the loneliest woman in the world, and she tries to lure people with a guilty conscience to a lifetime of wandering alone with her. So at some point in the month, Elena and I are going to be sending frantic Voxer messages to each other while we, hide in very bright corners of our house and read this book. So the last book that I have got for this Stack-It TBR is thankfully quite a short one, but it is a book that I started stalking right at the beginning of the year when I heard that it was coming out, and Granta have been kind enough to send me a beautiful finished copy, and it is Ghostwall by Sarah Moss. So I read The Tidal Zone by Sarah Moss a couple of years ago with everybody else in the entire world of BookTube, and like everybody else I fell in love with it, and I have been obsessed with her work ever since. The Ghostwall is literally the tiniest novella, and it has such a small and succinct synopsis that I'm just going to read it to you because I don't think I can improve upon it. It says, teenage Sylvie and her parents are living in a hut in Northumberland as an exercise in experimental archaeology. Her father is a difficult man, obsessed with imagining and enacting the harshness of Iron Age life, so clearly a crazy person. Haunting Sylvie's narrative is the story of a bog girl, a young woman sacrificed by those closest to her, and the landscape both keeps and reveals the secrets of the past, violence and ritual as the summer builds to its harrowing climax. Give it to me now. So that is my TBR plus one audiobook for September. Not gonna lie, I'm slightly intimidated by the sheer amount of spookiness that I have included in one TBR. It never seems that much when you're actually making the stack. Please let me know what is on your September TBR. Have you read any of these books? Do you think I'm insane for reading so many spooky things? I literally am never going to sleep again. Pity my lovely wife Helen, that's all I'm saying. I will speak to you guys soon. Bye!